You are tuned into the Dr. Tina Show with Dr. Tina Moore. For more, visit drtina.com. On this episode of the Dr. Tina Show, we're going to sit down for a minute and have a talk because I think the time has come. This whole microdosing for weight loss nonsense that's going around the internet, that's being touted by health influencers who are claiming to be doing it for inflammation, but really we know they're doing it for weight loss. The telemedicine companies that are selling people in on microdosing GLP-1s for a myriad of things and then giving them the standard starting dose, which is what's happening everywhere. Gross. And then all the doctors who've been claiming to be doing this for years who are actually still just standard dosing. We need to talk about it because I think it all feels pretty gross at this point. My message that I originally came out with, that I got my ass handed to me for the first year at least alone, I had absolutely no support. I had everybody coming at me with just full-on heat when I first introduced this concept. It's gotten completely twisted, bastardized, co-opted. Mainstream media's ran with it and twisted it. It has all turned into some big, gross, multi-million-dollar industry, I'm sure, at this point, all around vanity weight loss. And that is not at all what I ever intended it to be. Not at all. The conversation I've been trying to have is a completely separate conversation. And yet, this messaging is what's gotten out. This is what the publications have written up on. This is what all of the internet is a buzz about. And now we've got, this week alone, it's going off over on Instagram. I don't know about TikTok, but man, just the pushback on it that I'm seeing, because people are fed up. And you know what? They're not wrong. Like, I'm with them. I'm fed up too. I think what I originally tried to propose has got twisted into something gross and scammy, and you guys are all being scammed and lied to. And I'm in the middle of it because my name's getting pulled in, and people are like, oh, go listen to Dr. Tina. She said it was safe. Go listen to Dr. Tina. She's in support of it. So now I've got a whole legion of people messaging me, asking me to jump into these Instagram posts and defend against what these creators, some of these obesity docs are saying. And I'm like, no, I totally agree with them. Microdosing was never intended to be a weight loss strategy. And in fact, I'll tell you the truth, it is not an effective weight loss strategy. I have said this from day one. I have been completely clear from day one. If you go back and watch any of my content, if you watch any of the other podcasts that I was on over the past year plus, if you watch my free 4-part video series, if you go look at the sales page for my course where I teach doctors and other health professionals how to do this right, you'll see that I very clearly state microdosing GLP-1s is not an effective weight loss strategy. So with that, let's jump in because I think the time has come for me to finally have this conversation with you. I feel like I've said it all a million times. I've said it all on others' podcasts. I've said it all on my podcast, but I'm going to put it all into one episode today so that I can just hand this episode to people because I'm so tired of it. At this point, what I'm seeing en masse is my name being used to sell a scam, and I'm over it. So let's jump in. I took notes so that I'd stay on target. I know that I can get impassioned about this, so I will try to keep my voice calm and my cadence even, and I will try not to get too fired up. But every time I talk about this, I'm so grossed out. And I'm so frustrated because the inmates are running the asylum. I have no control over the conversation anymore. And it has got twisted into something so egregious, and my name keeps getting pulled into it. And I'm like, yo, I never said that. I never intended this to happen. And yet, of course, with anything good, as you know, people have to pull it back to their vanity, and they only hear what they want to hear. So they come off of hearing me on a podcast and they're like, this is going to be great. I'm going to go use it for weight loss. And then there's these predatory companies that are coming after you. Some of them are people who took my course, actually. I just found a dude using my name in his Facebook ads, and I had to send him a cease and desist letter. Dudes built a whole program around preying off middle-aged women because they get you in on this microdosing idea. They tell you it's for weight loss. They tell you it's effective. The thing is there's so much stigma and shame around this peptide that you all are like, oh, I would never take Ozempic, but I'm okay with microdosing it. And now we have this whole movement of influencers on social media saying, I'm using it for inflammation. And then they're affiliating with big telemedicine companies and small telemedicine companies, and they're getting a kickback. They're getting paid to convince you that microdosing is safe and that you can use it for your inflammation or for your longevity, but they're giving you a standard starting dose when you get in there. And I've had no fewer than 5 people in the past 2 days alone that I personally know message me and tell me, I got an ad for microdosing GLP-1s with this telemedicine company or that telemedicine company, or my doctor told me they do it and they offer it. And in all 5 cases, those folks were being standard low dosed. Just given this, you're not being microdosed, folks. You're just being given the starting dose, the standard starting dose. And they've convinced you it's microdosing. And because you are hearing the stigma around it, or maybe you even feel the stigma around it, you don't want to be on Ozempic. You don't want to tell anyone you're on Ozempic. So you're going to tell them you're microdosing for health. But really you're using it for weight loss. And you're using a standard dose, which does work for weight loss, but you're not microdosing. And none of this was ever anywhere near what I intended originally when I introduced this concept. It's gotten completely twisted and out of hand. So we're going to try to set the record straight on this episode. And I'm going to go through step by step and I'm going to give you the goods. So let's go. Where are we at with things? First off, let's just talk about how this all started. 2 years ago, I came out on my podcast, and about 2 years ago, I came out on my podcast and I came out with this idea that, without going into too much detail, because there's an entire podcast of me explaining my rationale. But my theory was, if we utilized tiny little doses of GLP-1 in the metabolically optimized already, this is a concept, this is a strategy that only works on those who are already metabolically optimized, folks. So if you're not one of those people, microdosing is probably not going to work for you. If someone's metabolically optimized, if their body composition is dialed in, if they're doing all the things as I call it, right? They're strength training regularly. They're optimizing their sleep. They're on the HRT, hormone replacement therapy. They are setting their circadian rhythm and getting daylight regularly. They are eating nutritionally dense foods. They are mitigating their stress load. Those folks still have health issues, folks like me, right? I'm very lean. I have very low body fat. I've got a belly. I've got a little bit more belly than I'd like. It's not as lean as it used to be, but I am pretty dialed in for a almost 52-year-old, right? For folks like us, we still have autoimmune disease. We still have pain. We still have joint issues. We still have issues. My thinking was, and my rationale, my hypothesis was, if we utilized a tiny little dose of GLP-1, because I found all this literature supporting the concept that it may be helpful. It's not a prevention, treatment, or cure. We're not doing any of that. It's part of a comprehensive treatment plan. It's part of a comprehensive peptide stack. Could we bring little tiny doses of GLP-1 on board? And would that potentially help with brain fog, because it had neurocognitive benefits showing? Would it be helpful with joint pain? Would it be helpful with autoimmune disease? Would it be helpful with stabilizing the immune system? So like mast cell activation syndrome, for instance, you get really robust histamine responses. We know that these peptides have receptors on mast cells. Would that stabilize the mast cell? I found literature supporting all of these potentials. And I thought, well, that would be interesting to try. Obviously, full disclosure, with the patients that I decided to work with, called up every single person I knew who was in the GLP-1 space or was using them or utilizing them in any way, shape, or form in their clinic, and asked them all the same question. Are you using these at tiny little doses for things outside of weight loss and body composition? Because we know in the bodybuilding space, they might be using them in very low doses for body composition. We know that, I knew folks that were using it at like half the standard starting dose for weight loss, and having weight loss programs ran on that, but they were starting doses. Those were onboarding doses. So while they were lower than the standard starting dose, they were still onboarding doses, and they would often need to ramp them up into something a little bit higher. I knew people using them in just the lower doses, period. So with semaglutide, that's 0.25 milligrams, and with tirzepatide, that's 2.5 milligrams. That's a standard starting dose. I knew people doctors that were using them there, and then maybe one tier up, and still having really excellent impacts on type 2 diabetes and weight loss. I couldn't find anybody that was dosing them how I was proposing, which was like less than half of the standard starting dose at the very most. And in fact, I was proposing a fifth to a tenth of the standard starting dose. I'm talking droplets. especially when we're talking about mast cell activation syndrome or people with chronic Lyme or chronic mold or people who are really, really sensitive and chronically ill, because their immune systems go poof, right? People with autoimmune disease like myself, people who have autoimmune driven pain like myself, and that can flare like that. You'd never want to hit those people with anything too hard. Everybody said no. They weren't using them off-label for those reasons. Every single person I talked to told me that. There was one compounding pharmacist who told me about a doctor that was using them off-label, but it sounded very much like that doctor was still using standard starting dose. So I did my due diligence as best I could. I went around conference after conference talking to compounding pharmacists. I talked to all of my professional colleagues. I did my due diligence. I never in a million years would have proposed like, oh, I came up with this, I'm so special. The reason I've ever said that this is my strategy was because I couldn't find anyone else doing it. And in fact, I hold to that because I've still got people saying, I've got doctors coming up to me saying, I don't know why you said that. We've been doing this forever. And I'm like, well, how do you dose it? Oh, at 2.5 milligrams. Okay, well, that's the standard starting dose. That's not a microdose. I'm talking micro. I'm talking a fifth to a tenth of the standard starting dose. Okay, so that's what you're doing. What are you using it for? Oh, weight loss and body composition. So I don't know. It's okay. I don't care who's doing what. And that's great. I never meant to take anybody's, proprietary methods away or claim that I was doing something so unique and novel. I just kept finding that I wasn't getting anybody answering me yes when I was asking those questions. So when people would come after I introduced this to the world on my podcast and then subsequently got on others' podcasts and started talking about this and going on the podcast tour, I kept having people say, well, can you send me to someone who does it like you? And I would recommend people that I knew that I thought were doing it that way. And then those people's patients would come back to me and say, I'm sick as a frickin' dog. I'm on the couch puking my guts out. What's going on? I'm like, what's your dose? And they tell me, I'm like, that's not a microdose. And even some of the bigger doctors out there who have told me they've been doing it forever, I've talked to their patients, and I'm no shade on anyone. I've just talked to their patients, and their patients are on standard starting dose and losing a lot of weight on it. That's not what I'm proposing. That's never, ever what I was proposing. And so now I think in the allopathic community that's not in alignment with this, and the obesity community and some of the creators and doctors I'm seeing online really coming down on this, I get it. I'm with you because you're hearing microdose. You're thinking, oh, it's a vanity weight loss thing. It's frustrating for you because your patients are coming in asking for it, and you're probably understanding it to be a standard starting dose or maybe half. That's not what I ever proposed. So I just wanted to set the record straight there, okay? This isn't about me, but I wanted to at least share where I'm coming from because I keep getting pulled into this conversation. I keep getting tagged into these posts, and I'm like, yo, and everyone's blowing up my DMs with them. And seriously, at the end of the day, I never, ever proposed this as a weight loss strategy. I think the people who are upset about it and pointing the finger at me have not listened to my content and have not listened to me explain this because I have explained this. And those of you who've heard me explain it are probably like, okay, Tina, we've heard it. You've heard me say this over and over and over again. This is not a weight loss strategy. In fact, I've been very clear. If you need to lose weight, and I'm talking over 20 pounds, you are definitely looking at standard dosing. I've been very clear about this. I'm very clear about it in my free 4-part video series. If you haven't go watch that yet, it's great. Go to my website, drtyna.com, DRTYNA. At the top, you'll see the offer to click there. It's called GLP-1 Uncovered. Click there. 4-part video series will drop in. I'm actually revamping this. So at some point, if you're watching this in the future, you may actually see a different video there, but all the content will still remain the same. I just want to make sure to update it here soon. And then I sell a course to clinicians and to health professionals. And I let the general public into that. And you'll be able to purchase that course, I think on day 3 or 4, after you opt in to that funnel of free videos. So I highly encourage you go there right now. It's drtyna.com/Ozempic Uncovered. Good education there. It's a good starting point. I've got 20 plus hours of free material about GLP-1s on my podcast. You can go to drtina.com. You can click on the podcast link. It will take you to a page where you will see all of my podcasts categorized by category. And there's a whole series called GLP-1 Uncovered. And there's a multitude. I have probably over a dozen videos there at this point, podcasts. So go check that out. I've tried to be transparent from day one. And I've tried to let you guys all know this. I can't talk about this on social media. And in fact, I don't want to anymore because I feel like it's gotten so twisted up that like, what am I going to do? Just go in and defend it? I've got people dropping into my DMs screaming about all the myths and bullshit lies that you guys have been fed. There's like that whole side of things. Then there's the folks who are following the leaders in MAHA who hate Ozempic. And so there's those people coming at me. And I'm not here to defend Ozempic for obesity or not. I've never proposed microdosing as a strategy for that. I was trying to have this conversation. So what is this conversation over here? From tip to toe, GLP-1s have been shown to reduce neural inflammation, be neuroregenerative. They have been shown to have impacts on your mitochondrial health. They have been shown to have impacts on your immune system, positive. They are nourishing and regenerative and anti-inflammatory to your muscles and your bones. That's right, folks. They do not cause muscle wasting necessarily. I'll talk about this in a minute where the caveats where I am concerned, but they absolutely have been shown to be helpful and protective and maybe even a little bit anabolic in the fact that they help with microperfusion of blood to those structures, the muscles, the bones, the joints. Impacts on pain, impacts on, like I said, immune system. So there's, what's the potential there? There's potential with autoimmune disease. I mean, that's a laundry list of potential, right? We've got FDA approval for cardiovascular health at this point with big, good studies. We've got FDA approval for sleep apnea. Is that a weight loss issue or is there something happening centrally in the brain when it comes to sleep apnea? I think it's both, right? Because I have patients who are lean who have sleep apnea. So it's showing efficacy there. There's a whole litany of potential uses. And so my proposal was, what if we use these at physiologic doses? Because we know that we have the data showing that those who have type 2 diabetes and fatty liver have GLP-1 deficiencies. My hypothesis was, what if there's a functional deficiency happening? What if, because it's made in the L cells of the gut and it's made in the brain, so it must have a pretty important role in the brain besides just appetite. You know, I don't necessarily think it's an appetite suppression signaling peptide hormone. I think it's an appetite control. I think it's one of the levers that manages and impacts appetite. All right. So it's made in the gut. A lot of people have gut atrophy as they age. Most people do. We know that we lose the ability to make HCl in our stomachs. We know that we lose intrinsic factor that's manufactured in our stomachs. We know that there's issues with the many, many, many molecules that are secreted by our gut lining as we age due to atrophy. We know that those who have inflamed guts due to inflammatory bowel disease, for instance, like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's, they are going to have definite issues with the molecules that are coming out of the gut because their guts are inflamed and they are in bad shape. We know that those with IBS, I have patients, I mean, this is just anecdotal, but I cannot tell you the number of patients I have who have IBS. And when their IBS flares, their pain flares. And when their IBS flares, their depression flares. So we know that what's going on with the gut directly impacts the rest of the body intimately. So my thinking was, well, if the L cells are in the gut and the gut is trashed, or there's like decades of leaky gut or inflammatory gut issues or pathogens in the gut, then I'm going to guess that their GLP-1 production might be compromised to some degree, maybe. And what if we just replenished back the little tiny amount that their body would normally be making? That was my hypothesis. Again, it's been turned into this whole wicked mess. And I am just but one person. I do have a sizable platform, but there's only so much I can do, right? I can't help it when the New York Times interviews me for an hour and a half and then proceeds to turn around, spin the story, call me a health influencer and refuse to call me a doctor. And then there's no part of the interview, which was a fantastic interview, by the way. She asked me the hard questions. I really appreciated it. I mean, she really took me to task and I enjoyed the conversation and I answered her like a prudent clinician would. And all she writes is Miss Tina Moore, health influencer who sells a course for $2,000. She just throws me under the bus somewhere in like the, third quarter of the article. that's where we're at, folks. So I can only do what I can do. I tried. I spent a ton of money and a ton of time traveling the world, going on podcasts, trying to educate you all correctly as I knew it. And it's now turned into a monster. And like I said, the inmates are running the asylum and they're all melting down right now on Instagram. And you've got, 25-year-old influencers with 10,000 followers working with telemed companies using my name, sending you to my podcast, which thank you. That's great. That's exposure. I appreciate it. But you guys are using my name and you know who you are to sell your followers into working with the telemed companies that you are affiliated with, that you're getting paid by. You're getting financial compensation and kickbacks, which I think should be illegal. If I were to take compensation or kickbacks, that would be called price splitting, and that is highly illegal. So I don't know why it's okay. I guess only if doctors get a kickback for making a referral, that's illegal. But when influencers do it, it's not. I think it's grosser than gross. And you guys are making a ton of cash working with some of these huge telemedicine companies and some of the smaller telemedicine companies. And you're telling your followers that they're going to microdose GLP-1s for inflammation, wink, wink, because that makes them feel better about it. So they don't feel like, they don't have to be like, oh, I'm on Ozempic for weight loss. They can say, oh, I'm microdosing for health reasons, And your guys are just getting standard starting dose. So you're not microdosing. You're being scammed, and they're charging you an arm and a leg for it. And you're being scammed. I don't have anything better to say about it. That to me is a scam. And, I don't know who's necessarily doing that. I'm not going to name names, but I see it all the time. And I am constantly getting pulled into it. Or there'll be some kind of meltdown conversation in the comment section of somebody's posts who are microdosing for health. And then people pull my name in. Dr. Tina said it's safe. Go listen to her stuff. And I'm like, whoa, I am proposing that I believe it. Okay, first of all, let's clear this up. I think it's video 2 or video 3 of my 4-part video series where I go into the big scaries. And I've talked about this at length on my podcast and others, so I'm not going to go into every single condition. But the propagandized push to scare the bejesus out of you guys in literally 99% of those cases is just nonsense. The data is not bearing out supporting those claims. The pancreatitis claims, the thyroid cancer claims, they're just not bearing out. So you can believe what you want to believe, but the latest data looking at long-term studies, big cohorts, it's just not playing out that way. I do believe these peptides are very safe. You can go decide what you need to do after you talk to your doctor and decide what your risk tolerance is based on your health history. That said, I would propose theoretically that if a 15 milligram dose is considered safe, and we have good studies to support that a tiny little droplet might actually also be safe. That's just my hypothesis, and I'm very clear with my patients when I talk to them about this. But if you were to tell me that, let's take aspirin, for instance. I think they come standard 350 milligrams in the tablets. I'm going to propose that a baby aspirin, let's call this baby GLP-1, if we will, a baby aspirin, which is 81 milligrams. I don't know where they came up with 81 milligrams, but 81 milligrams, I would suspect is probably safer than 350 milligrams. Right? Can we agree on that? So what if we took that 81 milligrams and broke it in, up and made it a 10th of that dose? Could we propose that would be even safer? We could speculate that would probably be safer because we're doing less and less and less dosages. So I'm not going to sit here and split hairs with doctors who want to argue that because I think that's a nonsense argument. But that said, the big scaries you're seeing, it's got to stop. It's clickbait, you guys. I don't know why. I don't know what the agenda is. That's a whole other conversation that we're not having today. I've had it on my podcast. I've had it on others' podcasts. You can go listen to that. So anyway, that's the origin story of how this all got started. And I'm just fed up at this point, and I'm tired of getting pulled into it. I'm not mad that it's being popularized. I'm not mad that more people are doing it. I'm mad that it's getting misrepresented and it's turning into clickbait and it's getting super gross. And that's how everything happens, right? People hear what they want to hear. Patients would come into me to talk to me about their chronic pain because that's what I specialized in. They would come in to talk to me about their joint issues because I did regenerative injection therapies. That's what I specialized in. And they would very often not hear me. And what I would tell them is this, and this is the whole same holds true for GLP-1s. specifically microdosing them. If you're not in a good healing state, meaning if you cut your finger and you don't heal well, you're probably not a candidate for regenerative injection therapies, because the whole premise of them is that they harness your body's innate ability to heal. And if that is shite, then you're going to have a shite response. Okay? So if I have a patient, they want PRP, which involves me drawing their blood, spinning it out, isolating and concentrating down the platelets, and re-injecting that solution back into their compromised joint structure, the ligaments, the tendons, and intra-articular of the joint that's of complaint. This is exactly what I would tell patients. If I could just tell by looking them. If I take your hot mess of inflamed blood and I concentrate it down and I shoot it back into your hot mess of an inflamed joint, what do you think is going to happen? That is a disaster waiting to happen. That's like setting off a bomb. That's a terrible idea. So ethically, I would not do it. And I would make sure that we got them optimized before I put them through that procedure, right? I've been doing this for decades. This is nothing new. We would start with terrain. Terrain first. How's your gut health? How's your strength training and your exercise? Like, are you metabolically optimized for this? How's your hormonal status? How's your sleep? All the naturopathic 101 goodies, right? Like, we address them all and then we treat, because it's unethical to treat a body that isn't going to respond. Just as much as it is unethical to promise a middle-aged woman who has 40 pounds to lose that microdosing her with an $800 vial of semaglutide is going to help her lose weight. Do you know who loses weight on a microdose? Women like myself who are already dialed in. And we just have maybe 10 to 15 pounds max. And usually what that is like a inflammatory fluff, as I call it. It's your fat cells being inflamed at the end of the day. It's as we age and as our hormones start to shift, our macrophages shift from a less inflammatory to a more inflammatory state. So now we literally have inflamed fat that's pissed off, and that has a huge impact on our metabolic health. If we can address that early on, I think the better, right? When that woman comes in with an extra 12 to 15 pounds around her midsection, and I haven't seen her in a year, and I know this woman is dialed into a T. Like, this woman has the discipline of a Navy SEAL with her nutrition, with her exercise habits. Like, she's doing all the things right. But all of a sudden, maybe she doesn't have any weight on her. Maybe she's got 6-pack abs, but all of a sudden her labs start shifting and the lipids start going up and the serum insulin starts going up and the inflammation, the markers, all of them start going up. And I'm like, whoa, what is happening here, right? That is insulin resistance. That is low key. That is happening as your hormones shift. And we can put them on HRT and we can still see those impacts happening. The HRT isn't always the magic panacea either. And by the way, your HRT isn't worth a damn either if you're not optimized. So going in and, you've listened to Dr. Mary Claire and you're excited and you go in and you've got 60 pounds to lose and you're like, I want estrogen. We do not want to be putting estrogen in an inflamed, obese body. That goes down weird pathways. We got to clean up the terrain, and GLP-1s do a beautiful job of that. Some of you are going to need standard dose. They're still going to help you clean up the terrain. Some of you are going to get by with a microdose, and it's going to be awesome. And not only are you going to have your insulin resistance addressed, but you are potentially going to be getting some help with some of these other things. So when people say, what's the dose, Dr. Tina? You're gatekeeping. You're a horrible person. I cannot tell you because I look at a myriad of factors when I decide dosing. I look at the individual sitting in front of me. What's their age? What's their height? What's their weight? What's their muscle mass? What's their gender? What's their short-term goals? What are their long-term goals? What are their comorbidities? What are their chief complaints? What are we trying to do here, right? That determines the dose. And so again, it's 1/5 to 1/10 of the standard starting dose, but it is part of a comprehensive treatment plan. It is part of a comprehensive peptide stack. I cover all of that inside my big course, my GLP-1 Done Right University. You will get to that and be offered a discount on it if you go through the 4-part video series. If you want to grab it now, you can go ahead and head over to drtina.com, click on the courses tab. It'll be right there for you. It is beefy. It is easy to understand, and the general public can easily understand it and comprehend it, but it is beefy. And I will tell you why I made one course, because I realized that most doctors don't have a flipping clue about what to do when it comes to metabolic health and hormones. And most of the general public is smarter than we think, and they actually deserve the high level education. And who am I to gatekeep it? So I made one course where I met y'all in the middle. So if you're intelligent and you're proactive about your health and you want to know how to do this right, spend the money and get the course, because I'm telling you, it will be cheaper than you going around in circles with practitioners and telemedicine companies trying to sort it out with them. You're still going to need someone to prescribe to you, and you're still going to go with what they say. But this way you can come in empowered through education and have a conversation with them. I provide you with all the data. I provide you with a whole module on how to find a practitioner in there. There is a spreadsheet in there where everybody who is a health professional, whether they're a health coach who is versed in this, or they are a prescribing doctor doing telemed across multiple states, they can list themselves on this spreadsheet. And then the general public who is also in there, this list is not available for sale outside of this course. I'm going to be very clear there. So please don't email me and ask me, because people do all the time. I have not vetted these folks out. I don't know if they've completed the whole course. I don't know if they know actually what it is that I'm proposing. Maybe they just listened to one module and moved on. I mean, the dude who was using my name to sell microdosing for weight loss is like, I'm not putting my stamp of approval on that dude. So I don't release this to the public, but you can, if you're a student of the course, you can access this list and you can find somebody to help you that way as well. Or you can learn how to talk to your general practitioner, and maybe that doctor can help you. But there's a whole module on it, is my point. There's, over a dozen expert interviews in there on a myriad of topics that you're going to want to hear about. I talk about all the other peptides that I suggest, and how these are over the counter. These are not gray market research lab versions. It's how to get your hands on them as needed and how to utilize them most appropriately. If there are ones that are only prescription in there, I teach you about them, and you can go talk to your doctor about it. I list all my favorite compounding pharmacies in there. So it's a beefy course, but that is not the point of this podcast. I just want to let you know that I have resources for you. A lot of them are free. Not all of them are free. All right. So we've covered the fact of what microdosing is and what it is not, and what a lot of you are being told. So a lot of you come to me. This is the other thing. I get messages. I have a huge audience, you guys, like not the biggest in the world, but I have a very active, warm audience. I have a big email list. I have, hundreds of thousands of followers, and I hear from you guys all the time. And I used to get hundreds of messages a day about this, and now I'm getting hundreds of messages probably a month about it. Less so these days, because it's not new and novel anymore. But a lot of you message me and say, I'm microdosing and I'm so sick, or I'm microdosing and all my hair is falling out, or I'm microdosing and these terrible things are happening. I always ask, what dose are you on? And 9 times out of 10 or more, 9.5 times out of 10, they're on the standard starting dose or higher. It's crazy. Here's some other things microdosing is not. It is not taking the standard dose and breaking it up into tiny increments throughout the week. That's going around too in the bro science peptide community. And I do not know where that originated, but that's a big one. So they're taking, let's say, semaglutide starting dose is 0.25 milligrams. They're taking 0.25 or higher a week, and they're just breaking it into smaller doses and calling that microdosing. That is not microdosing, you guys. That's standard dosing. That's just dosing. There is another version going around where people are on actually quite high levels, and they're just breaking their dose in 2. So they're calling that microdosing. That's big on TikTok, or at least it was last time I looked. That's not microdosing either. So a lot of what you're hearing, like when people say, I'm microdosing and this is what's happening, and I'm like, what are you actually doing? And when they tell me it's nowhere near, I'm like, honey, I would have put you on a 10th of that dose. I don't say that because I'm not going to give medical advice, but it's like, you see what I'm dealing with here? You see the frustration? It could be 10 different strategies, and the person's struggling, it's not working. Oh, I'll tell you another problem I'm running into. Doctors who actually are microdosing, but refuse to give a higher dose. And so they won't standard dose their patients, but these patients are going in with like 40, 50 pounds they need to lose. And so they don't have any weight loss. And then I say, hey, wait a minute. It's been like 9 months, and I knew you were going in to see somebody about microdosing GLP-1s. How's that going? And they're like, great, but I'm not losing any weight. And then I say, what dose are you on? And they're on a teeny tiny dose. And they're like, my inflammation's down. I feel better. My mood's improved, blah, 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 all these different benefits. Maybe my rashes have cleared up. My skin's cleared up, but I haven't lost a pound. And I'm like, that's because microdosing is not a weight loss strategy. It's not a weight loss strategy. I'm betting a bunch of you listening to this right now are probably signed up somewhere with someone, and you are microdosed. You're being told you're microdosed, or maybe you really are, and you're not losing any weight and you're frustrated. That's because it's not a weight loss strategy. So going back to that metabolically optimized woman that I was talking about, those folks, including myself, this was my lived experience. I did lose weight initially. I lost probably 15 pounds. It was an immunologic shift. I don't know how else to explain it. And I know that the allopathic community doesn't like hearing this and they'll come after me because they don't understand it. But I'm telling you, a lot of issues are driven by the immune system, low key. You don't have to have autoimmune labs show up positive for this to be true. You can have seronegative people who are HLA-B27 positive. There's a lot of mixed bag here, but I know that my immune system is markedly impacted by GLP-1s. And when that happens, I tend to lose a layer, if you will. I still have kind of a flubby tummy. Like, I'm still not comfy in a bikini. I still don't think I look awesome. I still have a little bit of that middle-aged, just a little bit on my tummy. I think you guys could argue and be like, Tina, you look great. I don't have the abs I want, but I still am. I mean, gosh, I could probably still fit in the jeans I wore when I was 18 years old. I'm in good shape. I have very good body composition, especially for somebody my age. GLP-1s definitely help with that, but it's because I'm having a mitigated impact on my insulin sensitivity, on my metabolic health. And I know this because I can see it in labs. Like, when I'm on a GLP-1, my labs look awesome. When I'm off of it, I do on and off cycles. I've talked about this too. I go into all of this in detail inside my course. Inside module 3 of my course, I actually explain the strategy around this with case studies to support it. But I just see improvement overall. And when I look at my comprehensive lab panel, overall, all of the markers that would suggest metabolic disruption look better when I'm on a GLP-1. So because of that, that is reflected in my body composition. Because if you are insulin resistant or you are having metabolic shifts, you're going to tend towards weight gain more likely than not. So point being, I am at a good, healthy fighting weight and I feel good. If I wanted to lose more weight and get those 6-pack abs, I absolutely could. I'd probably be looking at more standardized dosing, not microdosing. And I would probably end up with some symptoms and some side effects that I didn't like. I'd probably end up with some low-key nausea, burping, maybe some constipation, or sometimes people get loose stools. But point being is, I have accidentally gone up or put too much in at a time, and I have had side effects. And I'm like, this is not pleasant. True microdosing should not give you any side effects, but it also shouldn't really change your weight much. So I'll leave it at that. I feel like I've beat that horse. It's really a strategy, not so much a dose. It's not about the perfect dose. It's about a strategy. And then you have to consider, what do you do once you figure out your microdose? Do you need to go up? Some people do. Do you need to back off? Some people do. How do you cycle it? What are your short-term goals? What are your long-term goals? I talk about how to navigate this inside my course, but this isn't something I can just explain to you on a podcast. So there's more to it than, what's the dose, Dr. Tina? I have gotten novels from people, absolute novels, just ripping me a new one, telling me what a horrible person I was because I wouldn't share this all with the world. And I'm like, dude, the course is like 40 hours of content. How am I supposed to share that all for free with the world? This is my life's work on how to optimize your patient's metabolic health, all the bells and whistles that I've been practicing in my clinic for 20 years. And then I've added GLP-1 into the mix because I think it's such a key player in here. It's such a powerful needle mover, right? It's like, pull the big lever, but it's part of a comprehensive treatment plan. And so it's not about just figuring out your dose. You can go putz around with this all you want and try to figure it out on your own, but when you're not addressing all the other factors, in fact, GLP-1s tend to magnify any hormonal imbalances you already have. I have seen that happening. So if you're hypothyroid or low-key subclinical hypothyroid and your hair starts falling out, we know why. It's not just from weight loss. I do think GLP-1s can push folks over the edge of what they're already dealing with. If you are low-key hormonally imbalanced, if you're low, if you're too high, I mean, I've seen younger women microdose and it not go well. I've seen older women microdose and it not go well. And it is very much an amplification of whatever hormonal profile they currently have. So working with a practitioner who knows what the F they're doing is key. And I know that's easier said than done. And I know that's frustrating, but there's nothing I can do about it, you guys. There's nothing I can do about it. And so the big question is, well, should I just not say anything? Should I not have opened this Pandora's box? Should I just have never said anything? I feel like those of you who are savvy have found the answers you seek and found the practitioners you needed to help you, but you never stopped looking, right? It's the people who go to their GP, get a no or don't get the answer they like, and then they're like, doctors suck, I hate this. No, honey, you're just being lazy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that's hard to hear, but you have to be your best health ambassador. You have to hunt. I have 4 different doctors, you guys. They could all be considered under the same umbrella, but they all do different things. They all specialize in different things. They're not different types of doctors. They're just, it's my team, right? I use my team for what they're good at. So you got to find folks that are good at it. And that's easier said than done. It helps when you come in educated. That's what my course is for. I've got like a 45-page document in there, living document that I'm adding to every day, all the studies that are coming out that I'm looking at around, I can't catch them all, but all the ones I'm looking at around GLP-1s, we add them to this document categorized by system. And then module 8 of the program has literally every big system of your body with a lesson, a written lesson, paragraph format, bullet point format with the reference studies. So if you want to know what it's doing in your brain and neurologic system, there's a lesson on that. If you want to know what it's doing in your musculoskeletal system, there's a lesson on that. So it is by far the most comprehensive course out there, hands down, because I've bought a lot of them or I've talked to people who've been in a lot of them. This is, if you want to master how to optimize this comprehensively, and it doesn't matter, if you are looking for weight loss, this course is still for you. Because you still have to do all these things. You still have to live the insulin sensitive lifestyle. So you still have to do all the things which is laid out in the course, regardless of what dose you're on. Let's talk a little bit about the different types, because I think this is important too. This keeps coming up. I keep hearing from the peptide folks out there online that, retatrutide is the king. This is the new one, right? And even going so far as like trashing on semaglutide and saying, forget about it, retatrutide's the king. I'm going to tell you why. Number one is this has not been FDA approved yet, so it's not on the market when it comes to a brand name version. The compounding pharmacists have basically been threatened, so they quit offering it. The only place you can find it is the gray market. Guess what all the bro science guys and peptide experts who aren't licensed sell you? They sell you gray market peptides, research peptides. Now, are those any good or are they bad? I don't know. The FDA is cracking down on them and going after them. I have used them in a pinch. I would never suggest that people use them because we don't know what's in them. Are they coming from China? Everything coming from China, honestly, is quite fake when it comes to medicine. That's not a diss against China. That's just the facts. So we don't even know where these peptides are coming from or what's in the vial. And then you're buying them and injecting them into your body. Retatrutide is what the bros can sell you. So of course they're going to say it's the best thing out there, right? It's the best thing. Let me explain them. Semaglutide is GLP-1 agonism. This is a signaling peptide hormone, GLP-1. I talk about this in my content, so go listen to that so you understand it. We're going to do the quick version here. Tirzepatide is a GLP-1 agonist and a GIP agonist. That's another signaling peptide hormone in the body. And then retatrutide is GLP-1 agonism, GIP agonism, and glucagon agonism, another signaling peptide hormone. It is showing in the studies to be remarkable for fat loss and for fatty liver. So if you are somebody who is obese and diabetic, I am excited for this to come to market and for your doctor to prescribe it to you. I think the impacts are going to be really profound, good and bad. Because when you agonize glucagon, if you're not working out, if you're not strength training, if you're not doing all the things and hitting your protein macros, you will waste away. So we are going to see more extreme wasting when people are doing the higher ends and not taking good care of themselves. And quit blaming the doctors. We can say that that's a dosing and management problem. That's a dosing management and compliance issue. Getting patients to lift weights is like pulling teeth. It is about as fun as taking your teenager on a cross-country road trip when they don't want to go, okay? So a lot of people say, I want to strength train, and your patients will sit there and lie to your face, or they will tell you, I'm so excited, I used to do it, and then they won't do it. So if you are not strength training, you do not get to touch a GLP-1, in my opinion. I think it's out of the, that's just not, the two they got to go together. The two are not separable. So that said, when GLP-1 comes to market and we can prescribe it and it's FDA approved, very exciting. Very excited for the folks who have weight loss and type 2 diabetes and fatty liver. In the microdosing space, I think it's a little ridiculous. And I'll tell you why. Because there's a study, and I'll link the study in the show notes and you can check it out. I think it came out last year. Interesting study about retatrutide. It's got hardly any GLP-1 in it, guys. So if you're listening to me and you're listening to me share the data around all the health benefits, or you listen to any one of those free podcasts I did about the health benefits, potential health benefits, and the data that we're seeing around GLP-1, you got to use GLP-1. And there's hardly any GLP-1 in retatrutide. And in fact, I've tried it and all of my psoriasis came back. And I was like, I wonder why. So I went hunting and I found that. So for these folks in the peptide space who are like, I don't like semaglutide, retatrutide's the best. I love microdosing it. Okay, well, you're microdosing it for body composition then. You're not microdosing it for the other conversation I'm trying to have. We got to put like a name on this category over here. Systemic issues. Tirzepatide is 5-to-1 GIP to GLP-1. So there is some notable GLP-1 in tirzepatide, but there's more GIP in it. So if you're really going for the benefits of GLP-1, that's why my course is called GLP-1 Done Right University. It's not called Other Signaling Peptide Hormones Done Right University. It's not a weight loss course. It's a course to teach practitioners how to bring these strategies into their clinics. There will be a weight loss module in there soon. It's hard to do because the whole course itself is the weight loss module, if you will. If you don't do everything that's in the course, there's no weight loss. And the dosing doesn't really get too fancy after that. Like it's whatever moves the needle for the patient on the scale. That said, and you're probably going to run into more side effects. That said, semaglutide is all GLP-1. So there you go. There's your lesson. Everybody keeps asking me like, I really want to microdose GLP-1 for health benefits. What do you think of retatrutide? I'm like, I think it doesn't have very much GLP-1 in it. And everyone telling you otherwise, I don't know what's going on. I've sat in front of peptide experts and they've told me that, retatrutide's the new thing. I don't like GLP-1 or I don't like semaglutide. I'm like, well, what are we doing? I thought we were trying to use GLP-1 for the myriad of health potentials, right? So anyway, I digress. I think that's it. We're not dosing ever for appetite suppression ever. That's never my goal. In fact, I don't want anybody's appetite suppressed. I'm never using it for weight loss because it doesn't work for weight loss. I'm never dosing people into side effects because we don't want side effects. If you want to lose weight, that's a different strategy. That's not a microdosing strategy. So all of these companies telling you that it is, again, I think they might just be bringing you in on a microdose so that you acclimate to it well, which I think is great if we're using it. Because I just saw, there's a actual publication in Journal of Diabetes talking about microdosing GLP-1s for type 2 diabetes. And really what it was at the end of the day was it wasn't a study, it was just an opinion piece, but what it was an onboarding strategy. So I do love the idea of using lower doses to onboard patients so that they tolerate it. But again, I think the thing that I'm seeing all the obesity doctors get wrong on Instagram is that they don't like this strategy too much because they think that it's about weight loss. And the argument that I just saw a creator who I had to block because she threw me under the bus and she loves to make derogatory content about me. You know who you are. Very unprofessional, by the way. Like if I were a patient, I would never want to come see anybody like that who was leaving nasty comments in my DMs in my comment section of my post to the point where I had to block them and then going and putting me on blast on their page with several 100,000 followers. Like gross. Anyway, that said, her argument is, let me see your body composition. If you want to microdose GLP-1s, let me see your body composition and I'll tell you if you need it, because you either need it or you don't. And if you don't need it for weight loss, then you don't need it. I'm like, really? Like, show me you're not up on the data because your bio says GLP-1 expert. So, okay, we can agree to disagree on that professionally. But at the end of the day, I'm seeing profound impacts in patients and followers. That's the thing people forget. I have hundreds of thousands of followers. I hear from all of you, and I've gotten thousands of stories from people of the incredible impacts that GLP-1s are having on their life at various doses. So we know it's impacting these systems. So if I can get these impacts in patients on tiny little doses, then you bet I'm going to do it. It's less expensive, less side effects, less risk for poor outcomes, right? So I don't understand why people are hung up on this, like, whatever. I think it's because they hate compounding pharmacists. So we'll leave it at that. But that said, why not? Why not utilize the tools that we have available to us to help our patients and meet them where they're at? And I realize not everybody can access this, and I realize not everybody can afford it at the end of the day. There is a cost issue. I'm not talking about any of that right now because I can't do anything about that, you guys. All I can do is educate you and hope that you can find the resources that you need based on being empowered through education. And if you want to believe me or you want to believe them, I don't care. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I just want to let the world know that GLP-1s in a microdose form are not a weight loss strategy. I think it's a scam. And I think they're onboarding you and they're bringing you in under the guise of like, oh, there's no stigma because you're microdosing it and you're using it for, let's use it for your brain health. And then they're giving you standard starting dose, or they're giving you just below to kind of bring you in and nudge you in, but they're ending you up on a standard dose. It feels scammy to me. So I'll leave it at that. There's probably a million other things I want to say to you, but I've got a podcast. I can do that anytime. I hope this was helpful. I don't have great answers for you if you are one of those people who are a patient in that situation. If what's working for you is working for you, great. I would say great. There's no reason to go on a lower dose. There's no reason to, I see no reason to change anything. Absolutely do not change anything without talking to your doctor, because none of this is medical advice. This is just me talking to you, educating you. Your doctor is who is in charge of your dose. So if you want to change that, you need to have a conversation with your doctor. I would say have an educated conversation, and that is why I make this content. You can do with it what you want. I don't really care if the internet is melting down. I don't care if people are coming at me about it. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, because I know what's working in my life and in my patient population and with the folks that I consult with. I have several folks I consult with who have actually been through a myriad of different programs. And in many of these programs, they're being given standard doses of GLP-1s for body composition, because when we get body composition dialed in, a lot of the other health issues fall away. So if you are on a standard dose and you have had favorable body composition changes, that's fantastic. You are now going to have improved cardiovascular health. You're going to have improved musculoskeletal relief. Usually most people who lose weight or have their insulin resistance get dialed in, their pain goes down, right? Because insulin and inflammatory molecules get into the joints, get into the discs. It's a whole mess, right? And so if we can get all of that dialed in, all the better. All that to say, if you're on a standard dose, like, I see no reason for you to go onto a microdose so long as it's working for you and you are doing all the things. I'm not trying to compete with Big Pharma. I'm not trying to say that their pens or their, access to their versions is bad at all, because they now have the vials, which I think is super cool. So now that more personalized dosing strategy can be utilized by doctors who are in the know, because they can access the vials. So I think that's very cool. And no, I'm not a paid shill. If I were, I wouldn't be even trying to defend this conversation. But I'm tired of you guys getting preyed upon by a message that I brought out to the world. So I will bid you adieu with that. I wish you well. If you guys have questions for the podcast, hit us up at podcast@drtina.com. Please go rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. All of them help us get the message out further. I'm trying to bring you guys the truth. I'm trying to bring you nuance, which is not popular online, and it's certainly not popular on social media. So this is where I get to have a nuanced conversation. I get to actually express myself and not deal with the droves of crazy people over on social, because they ruin it for everyone, right? So please support the podcast by doing that. That's the best we can do. Share this with a friend. Share this out. Again, no stigma, no shame. If you're, whatever dose you're on, whatever's working for you, fantastic. If you think you're on a really high dose, that's something we didn't address. It does stop working eventually. I've seen that time and time again with folks. I've talked to compounding pharmacists who say it's happening when we've got folks really dealing with the disease of obesity, but they're not doing all the other lifestyle pieces. They're just utilizing the GLP-1. It does eventually seem to stop working. And so they're looking at opening up FDA approval of higher and higher doses. I think that is a disaster waiting to happen. I think at the end of the day, that's a conversation for another podcast, but I think driving AMPK pathways hardcore without supporting mTOR is a recipe for wasting and for metabolic collapse. I am concerned about that. And that's something we're going to have to wait and see. I think in the next 5 years, we're going to see a whole cohort of people who took really high doses of these GLP-1s. They didn't do all the things. They didn't heed my advice or my warning, even on the tiny microdoses. It happened to me. I started wasting. I had a bad back injury. I stopped working out for several months. I kept microdosing and I started wasting. So does it eat up your muscle? Not necessarily directly. I believe it's the AMPK being revved too high. That's what I believe. And I would be happy to hear from other people. I think AMPK is really favorable when optimized, but in the unoptimized, in the underfed, and in fact, there is some data showing that we might actually be pushing, this was in mouse studies, right, in mice, but we could potentially, with GLP-1 in an undernourished body, we could be potentially pushing fallout of the hormones. That's not good. Like, we do not need a middle-aged woman on a GLP-1, even a microdose, who's being not really microdosed, with appetite suppression. She's not eating and her hormones are already falling out. And then we've now potentially worsened that situation because we didn't get proper kisspeptin signaling. Like, that's a whole other thing, not to nerd out, but I have my concerns. And I think we're going to see a real mess here in a few years if people aren't doing it right. I talk about how to do it right in the GLP-1 Done Right University. And I teach you all the tools you need to go ahead and do that right. I give you the strength corner and the strength vault. I'm going to add in there soon. It's a whole library of exercises and workout plans and programs. I give you the metabolic revamp toolkit so you know what that means and how to get started there. I give you all the tools that you need, and I give you all the tools that you need to understand as a clinician so that you can do this right with your patients. So that's at drtina.com, right up at the top banner, GLP-1 Uncovered. Click it. I'll make sure it's in the show notes too. You guys can check it out. You can get to my course, my paid course, from there with a discount, or you can head straight to drtina.com, click on courses, and the course will be there for you, and that's at full price. So with that, I will bid you adieu. Thank you for hearing me out. Thank you for listening to my rant today. Welcome to my TED Talk. It's just chaos out there, and the inmates are running the asylum, and I needed to set the record straight. So I'll see you guys later. Thanks for listening to the Dr. Tina Show. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson and mixed by Mike Fry. Theme song is by John the Guilt. You can watch the full video version of this podcast inside the Spotify app or on YouTube. As always, you can email the podcast at podcast@drtina.com. That's DRTYNA. And if you like this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can also find all of my offerings on my website at drtina.com. For more shows by my team, go to wellnessloud.com. See you next time, and thanks for listening. This podcast is for general informational purposes only. It does not constitute the practices of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice. I am a doctor, but I am not your doctor. No doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content on this podcast is intended not to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.